about a little blues in G? Let's see how this goes. I got a little loop set up here. So that's that's just a simple country shuffle that I put together just a second ago, and I've been teaching lately. I've been teaching turnarounds, and I call it blues you can use. In this case, we're in acoustic mode, and I think a lot of people are into not only acoustic blues, but it stretches into so many different kinds of music. The blues is the roots, and the rest is the fruit, and that's what I've heard anyway. That's what I subscribe to that. But so I'm trying to teach you guys, hopefully pass on a few little moves you can use. I kept this tempo particularly slow because I didn't want it to go by too fast. Sometimes things get lost, and I find that to be difficult sometimes when things are too fast. I can't follow them as well, so I wanted to slow it down a little. So this is a pretty easy, like an easy strum blues, and all I'm doing is just which I've shown you all a few times, but I'm not going to go through that again, but just know that's the rhythm I'm playing. It's just a little. Then I go to a C7. Sounds a little like stagger lead. Then it goes to the 5, D7. And walk it down to the C7. And then on the G, I do a little turnaround. Okay, so what I want to get to today, though, is I'm going to show you a couple of those little moves because I think it's important to not only have the vocabulary licks that work every time, no matter what key it's in, and they're all so different, in terms, especially on acoustic. What you can do in G is cool because you got all those open strings, and that's one of the reasons as blues players or just acoustic players we like that. A has that open A, which is nice. C is a different thing. It tends to be a little more on the folk blues side when I'm playing like this kind of C chord. E is straight up. D again is, they all have their own particular sound, don't they? You get a lot of blues in B flat, but that's mostly for horn players. So I'm going down a rabbit hole with that, but let me show you a couple moves you can do, and then I'm going to show you something I like to do, which is if you have an amp, I recommend, it could be a small amp, a Fender, whatever. If it's got tremolo, you can utilize it with an acoustic guitar. It sounds killer. And I know for me it works when I'm doing a live gig. I'll put a small amp like this Magnatone. I'll have that set really low because I want my acoustic to come through the PA mostly, but and they'll mic it or they won't. But what I like about it is that tiny little bit of amp with the acoustic guitar. I like the way that sounds. It kind of warms it up and gives it a little oomph, right? So in this case, I'm doing as I said, just a little acoustic, and then I'm going to a C7. Then I go to the turnaround. A million ways to do it. And sometimes I'll take that turnaround, I'll go from the D7th and I'll chromatically walk down. Simple thing, but very effective. Once again, there's a D7th, so it's like a C7 put up to, right? And walk it down. Okay? And then when I get back to my G chord, I'll give it a little bump there. And then I'll do my turnaround. And I've outlined this in a few different lessons. But if I do stop on that G, it's not a jarring stop, it's just a pause. And then I'll either do this turnaround, which I've actually shown in a couple different lessons, but it's the third finger on the D, and then the pinky picks up the 3rd fret on the high E string, and then you pinch it, or I'll show you. You can walk down chromatically with your 3rd, 2nd, 1st, and open on the D string. Cool, huh? It's a classic old, you know, roots blues turnaround. Finger style in this case, but you can do it with a pick. You can do it both ways. I like finger style because it just tends to get a little different voicing, but then you can also pick it up a different way. And then secondly, I did this one here. I go to the 7th fret with a D7th shape. You know, D7th, right? Just move it up to the 7th fret, which actually makes it a G7th, okay? It's a turnaround. And walk that down again chromatically. Land on your G chord. So the purpose of these little moves is to punctuate the end of a phrase, right? The end of a verse or a chorus, whatever. So in practice, it would sound like, you can mess around with those, and then to the C7th, kind of a folk blues, easy going, and back to your G. So just kind of working that 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the D string. And then I like this D7th, walk it down, and then here you got your turnaround. And what I like to do here is I like to do an E flat 9th, which is to a D9. That's the James Brown chord, right? Sounds like this. So that's nothing more than that D7th, but you're including the E and the A note. You don't have to, yeah. So you're barring the 5th fret on the top 3 strings. And then you got the 4th fret with your 1st finger on the D string, and then the 5th fret on the A string. If you don't know that chord, you should. And the reason I mention that is because you've already done this one, right? So why not give it a, check it out. That's definitely a different voicing. A little more in the, I don't know, it's a different flavor. Instead of, I like that. So that's that. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you here, and I just want to give you an example. You hear this, right? Well, this is what it sounds like with tremolo. It's really cool. You didn't really do much. You just hit the tremolo button and it's got a whole vibe going on. And when you add the loop to it, and you'll see what I'm doing here, and I'll do like a real simple kind of melody around this thing, see what happens. So on. So I just wanted to share that with you. I didn't want to get too crazy with this thing, but you know, being that I taught you a very simple turnaround and a real, like a loping kind of, reminds me of that Bob Dylan song, "It Takes a Lot to Laugh, Takes a Train to Cry." There's been so many like this though, you know, Stanley. I mean, there's a million different blues songs you could apply this to. So I hope that rings your bell. It's my style, you know, it's what I like to do when I'm playing acoustic. One of the things. Can't always be, you know, kumbaya folk stuff. It's got I don't know, for me, it's got a mix, and I love to cross-pollinate styles, whether it's country, blues, you know, whatever it is, like Taj does, you know, it goes all different places with it. And hopefully you enjoyed that. Hit me up at jimmydillon.com/free if you want some free stuff. And just hit me up on my website and check out my courses, and love to hear your comments, okay? We'll see you down the road.